report.
All right. I'm going to try and scan the best as I can. I'm a technology type person, so I always have my laptop and my paper. What I'd like to do first is to start out by giving you a short comment that was sent to me by Morrison. I've gotten quite a few number of emails on the station area plan. Sorry. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Welcome to the Larkspur Planning Commission and City Council joint meeting. I'm sorry I'm not here tonight. Many months before this meeting was announced, I committed my family and myself to a wedding back east. This is the first of many meetings to discuss the station area plan. We hope you will feel throughout this process that the Larkspur City Council and Planning Commission's commitment to an open and transparent, and that's emphasized, process to encourage public comment and input. We understand the strong emotions to any new potential development in the Larkspur landing site. It is clear to me that 95% or more of the community wants no development in Larkspur landing. I hear you. I hear you. We will only make responsible decisions after we hear from our entire community. Thank you for your patience to allow public comments and staff responses before we move on to the next step in this process. I look forward to working with our community on a positive outcome. What I'd like to do at this point is to allow our council members to speak, each give a brief comment, and I'll wrap that up and turn it back over to the Planning Commission. We'll start with Councilmember Dan Hillmer.
Good evening. Thank you very much for all the public comment and emails received by me over the past months. First, I agree with the expressed concerns regarding the impacts that a change to the existing general plan, land use policies in particular, may cause to our city. The existing policies should remain, be protected, and enforced, in my opinion. Second, I agree with the public perception that the draft stationary plan and the preferred alternative, as well as Plan B area, are fundamentally flawed. These include contradictory data on population projections, underreporting of existing traffic congestion and poor infrastructure, underreporting of the lack of convenient public transit and the impacts of traffic from the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge on the 101 freeway and Sir Francis Road. Flawed economic assumptions regarding highest and best land use without property owner input. And misrepresentation of proposed land uses, these are technical mistakes, leading to guidelines for new development that is out of scale with communities in Larkspur and most of Marin. These flaws in the Plan B area have been repeated, in my opinion, in the draft plan and the preferred alternative. Here's my thinking related to the current draft and the EIR. The stationary plan original purpose, as expressed by the council, was to evaluate impacts of the smart train on the area. Land use policy changes were discouraged. The stationary plan process changed under the implementation of the Plan B area. And this led to guidelines that promote high-density housing far exceeding what the Larkspur landing area can realistically accommodate. In my opinion, until traffic from the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge is off of Sir Francis Drake and on a new direct freeway connection to the bridge, there are no logical reasons to even review the draft stationary plan land use recommendations. Circulation improvements to the Larkspur landing area are very much worth reviewing and should be the City Council's focus as originally intended. The Council needs to take action and relieve congestion on East Sir Francis Drake by urging MTC, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, to immediately open the third lane on the bridge now. Parking and local street improvements in the landing area are needed immediately. Thank you very much. I hope this is helpful information for all of us.
Thank you, Jan. I'll now turn the microphone over to Councilmember Catherine Way.
Thank you, Dan. Can everyone hear me back there? As a new member of the council, I've had a huge introduction to democracy in Larkspur and Marin, so thank you all for being here very much. I'd like to address the Planning Commission by saying thank you for your service to our community, by volunteering, and they are volunteers on the Larkspur Planning Commission, and to take on such a complex issue that affects all of us in this room and all around. Larkspur is unique, and it's a beautiful place because our community leaders have a long tradition of taking a deliberate and thoughtful approach to decisions about land use, growth, and our environment. Under your guidance, I see this tradition continuing. I'm pleased to see many members of this community who've been here a long time in leadership roles participating in this process, and I welcome their comments too. Also, we have to remember that Larkspur expects civic disagreement and discussions to be respectful of process and of the opinions of others. We welcome this engagement that the station area plan has done to our community, because when people are involved and paying attention to details and turning out to actively participate, that's what local government is all about. And this is really democracy in action, so thank you for that. I will sort of reiterate many of the things that I was going to say that Dan has spoken of so that we can get on with our evening. But I just want to remind everybody that at this early stage, most of the public's attention has been focused on possible development of housing, of office, and of retail. But the draft station area plan also includes strategies to improve traffic congestion, create safer pedestrian routes, improve bicycle connections, ways to mitigate parking congestion, and improve our public parks. It's possible that during this process, the Planning Commission, some aspects of this draft station area plan will be rejected and others embraced. And it is possible that the entire station area plan will be significantly modified or even rejected before it gets to us. So we have a long way to go on this. As a council member, it's my responsibility to listen to all viewpoints and opinions. We're here to question all the assumptions and to help guide what is the best policy for Larkspur's future. And all the council members are engaged and actively participating in this process. I want to reassure you of that. And I took on this important role because I live here too. I live here, I work here, my family's here, my kids have gone to school here. This is very personal to us also. So let's make it all about what we can do right for this community. So with those things in mind, I have one statement in regard to the EIR, and it is under Section 4, subsection B, about transportation and circulation. Before anything is done, we must find real solutions to traffic congestion, parking, and transportation issues in this corridor. As we know, Larkspur sits at the confluence of a main corridor road and a state highway, both of which see heavy pass-through traffic. This isn't just our local roads, it's a regional issue, where multiple agencies must be involved and held accountable by all of us for workable solutions to these problems. Together, we need to find a real and permanent solution to the traffic congestion on East Sir Francis Day and Highway 101 before we can even consider any land use changes or amendments to our long-standing general plan.
Thank you, Catherine. Councilmember Kevin Haroff, you're up next. It'd be better for the crowd, thank you.
Hello. Good to see all of you here tonight. I'm a lawyer, so I write things out. So I'm going to read right over. I appreciate everyone attending the meeting tonight. I'd like to take a few minutes just to clarify my own views on where we are and where we are going with the Larkspur Station area planning process. I was elected to the Larkspur City Council last fall after a year and a half serving on the city's planning commission. My campaign in the fall emphasized concern over what I viewed to be a worrying trend toward increasing urbanization throughout the 101 corridor and elsewhere in Marin, including but not limited to the Larkspur landing area. I believe I was elected to City Council largely because of those concerns, and my views on the issues have not changed. I want to stress tonight that this is not just a matter of politics to me. As some of you may know, I have worked as a lawyer on environmental and land use issues for many years. The environmental consequences of often inappropriate land use and development proposals are a big part of what I have had to respond to over much of my professional career. For example, I put my own professional reputation on the line last October when I filed a lawsuit against Marin County and the County Board of Supervisors, challenging the county's adoption of a new general plan housing element that I did not believe fully complied with the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act and the state's planning and zoning law. I also have serious concerns over both the adequacy and the accuracy of the draft EIR of the stationary plan, as well as the stationary plan itself. And I've already conveyed some of those concerns to city planning staff. I intend to continue to express myself on those issues in ways that I believe are most likely to be constructive and lead to outcomes that respond fully to the needs and interests of our local community. But the promotion of my own views or the views of other elected officials on this subject is not what tonight's meeting is all about. The most important role that I and other public representatives here can play tonight is to listen and hear directly from all of you about your concerns, specifically your concerns with respect to the potentially significant environmental impacts of the different development scenarios described in the plan and in the draft EIR. Tonight's public hearing was set first and foremost to comply with the public comment requirements of CEQA and to hear what each of you have to say about the adequacy of the environmental analysis presented in the draft EIR, not me. I encourage everyone to keep that focus in mind and not just use tonight as a vehicle to vent understandable frustrations and complain about others who may not share your individual views. This is not the first, and it won't be the last time the public will have a chance to comment on the merits of the planning proposals that are before us. I intend to participate fully in that process in an open and transparent way, and I look forward to working with each of you here tonight to reach an outcome that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Unlike Kevin, I work without a script. Well, that's because I can't really read. Just reading this is about 3 hands thing. Anyway, just want to let you know that unfortunately Councilmember Hillmer has to excuse himself from tonight. It's not that he doesn't care and doesn't think that this is important, but you've already heard his comments. He has an equally important task right now, which is go to the Transportation Authority of Marin to advocate for that third lane on the Richmond Bridge. I think he's the biggest crowd we've ever played in front of. The only thing, I look out here, all I see is red. I'm a third generation Cal person, so that's really tough for me. But be that as it may, one of the things I want to be able to communicate to you is that I got my start in 2003 because I came out of the neighborhoods. I was a HRA president, and a former council member thought it might be a good idea that I run because we shared similar viewpoints on land use and development in and around Larkspur. I haven't forgotten my roots. One of the first things I asked for was the assignment to be the ABAG delegate for Larkspur, and I served in that capacity for 6 years, including fighting with them for over 3 years, trying to get Larkspur's numbers in the last cycle down from 1,042 to 382 units. We didn't get everything we wanted, no one ever does, but at least we were willing to fight. We also have a pretty regular and I would say consistent council style where we look at everything and we also look at it in the context of what's best for this community. We did that even though we took a lot of hits for opposing SMART. For any of you who saw my editorial on Sunday, in that document, what I said was, in effect, I can't quote it exactly because I've responded to so many emails and I've made an effort to actually respond to everybody's email, is that, you know, I come from a strategic planning background to some degree. And one of the things that we do when we look at alternatives is that you have to take them in the context of your capacity to fulfill that alternative as well as the constraints. So I have a tough time professionally looking at something when we have an unresolved issue and just say, oh, well, it'll be solved sometime later. So in that particular context, we have a number of different things that have not been mitigated even in our existing conditions. So I find it very difficult to want to proceed with any plan that will look at further development, specifically in the Larkspur area. You know, one of the things that we already have in place is that we have general plan policies. Those things have gone back for decades. Those things have served us well. We have policies in there now that already create mitigations to existing situations that we already have. And before we proceed any further, I'd like to keep those existing policies in place until such time that we either need to, have to, or have figured out some way to deal with the problem so that it can be part of a reasonable and logical conclusion to an end. But at this time, you know, as Councilmember Ray stated, you know, we have an open process here. You know, we do need to listen to all the people who want to speak. Obviously, the majority of you, you know, have a viewpoint in which you would prefer the no project alternative. But there are people that have an opposing viewpoint. Okay, we're here in Larkspur today. You're here as our guest. One of the things I'd like to ask you is that when other people speak and they have an opposing viewpoint, to just stay silent. Okay, because it is intimidating enough for people who have never spoken in public before to come up here even when everybody agrees with you. You can imagine how it would be for people who don't agree with you. Okay, so we would like to maintain, you know, decorum here in Larkspur. We don't want to further the reputation that Marin is getting for having a hostile environment for any opposing viewpoints. And, you know, we welcome everything at this point because that's what this process is. Now, before I turn it back over to the Planning Commission, I'd like to make one more request to the chair. Supervisor Katie Rice is here today, and she also has the same town meeting to attend. I'd like to ask that you let her make first public comment. And the second thing is, I've seen at least 4 ex-mayors here. They obviously should be given the opportunity to speak, so if you can put that in front of the line, that would be good too.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, since we do have the county supervisor, Ms. Rice, we're hearing from public officials. You're up.
All right, well, thank you very much, and I appreciate being allowed to speak at the beginning of these proceedings. And I am going to be going straight from here to the Transportation Authority of Marin meeting, where we're going to be discussing the 3rd lane on the Richmond-Sanderfeld Bridge, and that's directly related actually to the discussion at hand around the Larkspur stationary plan, and I think it's important that I be there. So I come before you today representing the residents of the Ross Valley, most specifically those of unincorporated Greenbrae and Kentfield. While Larkspur Landing does not fall within my district's boundaries, it is directly contiguous to communities I represent. Development of any kind, residential or commercial, that generates increased traffic in the Larkspur Station area and environs will have direct implications for the residents of Greenbrae and Kentfield, and in fact, for all of Ross Valley residents and beyond. I appreciate your openness in inviting and welcoming broad community input. While local land use authority does rest with Larkspur, I believe you agree that it is vitally important that decisions around land use and transportation that are made for the area take into account impact on the neighboring communities and seek to improve existing conditions
exacerbate an already intolerable situation. I view this Larkspur Station Area Plan process as an important opportunity to address existing conditions around traffic, circulation, pedestrian and bicycle access, and transit connectivity, as well as to plan for the future arrival of the SMART train. The DEIR, in our own experience, tells us unequivocally that Larkspur Landing, the Redwood Highway area, Sir Francis Drake, both east and west of Larkspur Landing, cannot handle existing traffic demand, let alone any increases. Experience and common sense tell us that there are existing parking, circulation, transit connectivity, as well as pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure issues that demand attention, with or without additional housing or commercial development. Every alternative studied in the DER, including the no project alternative, showed increases to traffic congestion and demand for services, even with fully realized mitigations, however realistic those mitigations are or not to implement. For an area already overbooked, whether that increase hits the CEQA significant impact threshold or not is irrelevant to the community. Community members living with the consequences of an overprescribed, insufficient, and unsafe transportation infrastructure. While local authority over land use decisions is the law of the land and something Marin County jurisdictions and residents greatly revere, I believe that we all, as community leaders and community members, have a greater awareness now more than ever of our need to consider the broader implications of decisions we make for local land use. Traffic, like floodwaters and fire, does not recognize jurisdictional boundaries. I applaud Larkspur for being prospective with regards to planning for the future coming of SMART, and also for building into the purpose statement of the draft plan the goal of addressing and improving current circulation for bike, ped, and auto, as well as parking, transit connectivity, and access. Planning, addressing the current needs and challenges in the area, as well as anticipating future needs, is a critical function for government. Indeed, this goal of improving traffic circulation and transit at this highly congested local, arterial, and regional crossroads should be the priority objective of this planning process and should be one that the broader community embraces. We all, Larkspur, Corte Madera, the Ross Valley communities and beyond, have an interest in resolving the traffic and congestion issues in this area. There is an opportunity with this Larkspur Station Area Planning process to do something very good for Larkspur and for the contiguous communities of Greenbrae and Kentfield, and for the broader community as well. But it will require that we work together. Larkspur, Corte Madera, San Rafael, the county, transit and transportation agencies to resolve current challenges and to put in place the infrastructure necessary to support existing and future mobility needs. We should not be contemplating future additional growth in the area until there is a plan in place to deal with the challenges at hand. I believe we are up to the task, and I offer you tonight my assurance of my support and cooperation in achieving these goals. Thank you.